The life of a composer, or any creative, is dictated by seasons. Seasons of sowing and harvest, the arid, barren winter, and the plentiful, abundant summer harvest. But when the world is full of strife and uncertainty, and at the same time you're in this state of unproductivity, and the inspiration to create is like a fleeting shadow, what do you do? Like for many composers and creatives, it seems like the only option is to detox from the world, to disconnect. I spent last week on the road, driving with some family down south to the Texas Hill Country from Chicago. My hope was to gain new insights and newfound inspiration to start writing music again. After all, it's been quite some time where I've just sat down to compose. I was hoping this trip was my antidote, but in reality, it wasn't. So why disconnect in the first place? Well, as Austin Kleon says in his brilliant book, Keep Going, when we're glued to our screens, the world looks unreal, terrible, not worth saving or even spending time with. Everyone on Earth seems like a troll or a maniac, or worse. I was so infatuated with staying up to date with the news, being glued to social media, as well as having a general uptick in my screen on time. This made me anxious, stressed, and ultimately uncreative. Not to mention I was burned out from the previous school semester, and it really stifled my creativity. I was just in dire need to detox from everything. Driving from Chicago down to Texas is quite a long car ride, and there were several stops along the way. The main principle I wanted to follow was to not think about composing right from the get-go. In fact, I wanted to proactively enjoy the trip and just soak in nature. As Anne Lamott put it, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. Again, I wanted to gain that creative spark to just compose music that made me fulfilled and ultimately happy, because I felt like I wasn't as, quote, productive as I used to be. With the next school semester rolling around and the inevitability of the world's problems to ensue again, I was afraid that if I didn't have some sort of breakthrough in this trip, I wouldn't ever find the creative spark to start writing riveting music again for the foreseeable future. But in actuality, I wasn't waiting for the creative spark. The creative spark was waiting for me. Now, contrary to popular belief, you don't need motivation to get work done. You gain motivation from getting the work done. While I may not feel like working, or it's possible that I really do need a break from music, it's the act of pulling out the manuscript paper and sitting at the piano to just start writing. So that's what I did. With an amazing view and some manuscript paper, I began writing again. It's not like I had some creative spark that caused me to sit down and write. It was on my own accord and volition. Now, I think it was the change of place and the novelty of being in this idyllic setting that caused me to get into the flow state, but it wasn't the reason why I started writing. Now, while the road trip experience and seeing new things definitely was a breath of fresh air for me creatively, it wasn't the catalyst that made me start writing great music again. Now, that thing that gets us to do our craft, it's not something that needs to come once in a blue moon. No, in fact, it's always been there. Hey, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see how burnout affects the creative output of a composer or creative, then check that video out right after this. But anyways, thanks for watching and keep writing.